Boom.
So, mate, welcome, Dan, to my podcast, One for the Road. I was going to ask how you are today, but you've already told me you've been up with the larks and you've been out to the boxing gym, you've been sparring. You're on it, mate.
Yeah, mate. So yeah, 4:30 start, out the door at 5. Get to the boxing gym back 5:15, and then yeah, good 7 rounds this morning.
Amazing.
And look, my face is all right, mate. I'm moving now. I'm moving. So
You're bobbing and weaving, ducking and diving, mate.
But yeah, it's definitely just I like to just push myself as hard as I can first thing in the morning, so the rest of the day feels easy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was up early as well, but I wasn't boxing, mate. I was sitting there crying because my dog woke me up at 4:45, howling. It's almost like there was a poltergeist in the bedroom. There's nothing there. She was just howling, you know.
Oh my
So
God.
I don't know what that was. But anyway, mate, I met you the other day, actually. I came to London, didn't I? And I appeared on your podcast.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. It was really good to meet you. Obviously, you've been a legend in my eyes for a long time, but also in my son. He's
Oh, wow.
29, and the lad that I work for, when I told them that I was meeting you, they're like, no way, I've got to come with you, Dad. And it's like, nah,
Wow. Yeah.
I'm having him to myself.
I really
Uh,
appreciate that. Yeah, I've been around a long time. I was one of the first sort of social media influencers. So yeah.
I heard actually that you was one of the first people ever to get 1 million followers on Facebook.
That's right, mate. Yeah. That when I Facebook pages where you have a page for like a comedian or something, hadn't really been, they hadn't started. They were only for corporations, for businesses. So
Mm.
at the time I was on Vine, I was making Vines, and somebody else actually made a fan page for me over in America, and it got like 15,000 followers on it. And someone messaged me and said, have a look at it. And I was watching this fan page. They were posting all my content, but they weren't posting it and doing the right captions and stuff. But it got up to about 50,000 followers. And I contacted the woman and I said, look, I'll give you some free tickets and whatever else you need. I'll give you some free tickets to a show or something and fly you over if you give me the page and let me manage it. And she did. She gave it to me. And
Wow.
yeah, by the time I hit 1 million followers, the only other Facebook pages that had 1 million followers at the time were Facebook's Facebook page, and I think it was Disney or Sony or something like
Yeah.
that. So I was the first like comedian. Yeah, I was everywhere at that point. Facebook, everywhere. Yeah.
And you're still young, mate. Well, compared to me, everyone's young, but you
Yeah.
know, as people know, I'm nosy and I like to wind it back. And I'd love to know about what it was like for you growing up and what got you into comedy, really.
All right, cool. Well, I now know that I suffered really badly with ADHD. I didn't know at the time, but it all makes sense to me now. But I could never concentrate in class at all, and I come from a broken home at a young age. My mum and dad had a really bad sort of breakup. I didn't see my dad for a long time. I was quite, we lived on a council estate, and I was sort of a bit rogue. Do you know what I mean? I went out, and me and my boys, we were naughty, and we used to get up to all sorts of trouble. And I was the same in school. I couldn't really concentrate very much, but I loved performing. I started acting from a young age and doing performing arts and musical theatre and stuff like that. Like I really loved performing. So from when I was about 8, 9 years old, dance, acting, and all of that stuff. And I couldn't concentrate on anything else in school really. So I got expelled from my secondary school when I was about 14, I think. I got expelled, chucked out, had to find a new school. And yeah, and I managed somehow to get some GCSEs, but I mean, I was real troublesome. I was in trouble with the police. I was out drinking and going wild. And also in school, I was just a class clown, but I used to do mad stuff. And then I managed to get a few GCSEs, enough to get me into, I was sort of buckled down in the last year. I panicked, and I managed to get some GCSEs, and I went to performing arts school, and I was studying to be an actor, and but I couldn't get no jobs. I was auditioning throughout this whole time, auditioned for everything, Grange Hill, EastEnders, loads of stuff, and couldn't get anything. I got a few little things, but nothing that set me on my way. And then I discovered stand-up comedy when I was at college. I mean, I always knew about it, but I really discovered it. And Lee Evans was massive at the time. And what it was, we was at someone's house having a party, and everyone was drinking, and they had it playing. And I just sat in front of the TV and I watched him for the first time. Then I got all his DVDs, and I became obsessed with how he could act out his jokes. and that's what really gripped me. Not so much the joke writing and the comedy part of it, but how he'd tell a story while playing both parts of the story. And I really loved that sort of expression of comedy, being able to visually become the characters within a story. And yeah, I'd done my first open mic gig when I was about 16 or 17, and then I was hooked. But my mum moved away when I was really young. When I was 15, she moved to Cornwall, and I only just started seeing my dad again. My mum moved all the way to Cornwall, so I worked at a go-kart track in the day, and I rented this house off my uncle. And there was years of just getting pissed and being a lad and fucking living the dream and all that stuff. And looking back on it, a lot of people say, "Oh, didn't you feel abandoned by your mum and stuff like that?" But no, you know, I was 15, 16, I loved it. And yeah, man, and I became an estate agent. So I was working as an estate agent, but I only got to about 17 or 18 years old of having a proper job. And I thought, no, this ain't what I want to do. I'm meant to be performing, I'm meant to be an actor. So I got a gig over in Cyprus, working in the holiday parks in Cyprus, doing hotel entertainment. So I was doing like the game shows, being a game show host and doing stand-up comedy. And then someone spotted me, and I went away and worked on the cruise ships. For about 4 or 5 years, I traveled the world on the cruise ships.
Oh, amazing.
About small independent cruise ships.
Yeah.
Done some world cruises, and then I worked my way up on there and became a professional comedian on the cruise ships. And then I was flying on and off the Royal Caribbean ones. I was really young still. I was about 24, 25. And then I come back, and my views had changed a little bit. I wanted to make money then. So I come back and I opened an estate agency, and I've done that for a few years, but the bug was still there. And then I discovered Vine, and the rest is history, mate.
Well, that's a lot at a young age, isn't it? And goes to show that when you put your mind to things, you're capable, you know, to go on cruise ships and do all that at a young age. Did you meet Jane McDonald?
No.
I was going to say, did you sleep with her? But I thought that
would have tried back. I would have tried back then, no doubt.
And what was your boozing like back then? Because you're on the cruise ship, it's a different kind of audience, right? Was it like older people?
Yeah, families. It's family. So it was really tricky to do comedy on. Well, actually, I didn't know any different. I actually only started doing sort of really controversial, risky stuff when I come back off the cruise ship. So I didn't really know any different. It was like innuendo, slapstick comedy, but it was a different beast. But I loved it. It was big shows. It was girls with feathers coming out, massive intros, lights, and that's what I was. I was a showman. I was into musical theatre, so I liked all the big "good evening, ladies and gentlemen" and all of this stuff. And the game shows, I was brilliant at the game shows. I don't know anyone. I mean, come across a lot of hosts, and there was no one that was as quick and as funny on the spot in the game shows as me. So I really felt like I think the good thing about that stint there is I was like a big fish in a small pond, and I already knew that I was talented. Do you know what I mean? I knew that I was supposed to be there, and I was talented when it comes to performing in comedy. But yeah, going back to the drinking, my whole life has been as focused around drinking. You know, when my mum moved away when I was 15, it was piss ups every weekend, big piss ups. That was the whole thing. And when I went away to Cyprus again, it was carnage in between acting. And on the cruise ships, every night, there was no weekends on the cruise ships. It was like every day you were in a different part of the world. So, you know, for a good 4 or 5 years solid, like 4 months on, a couple of months off. And even when I was off, I was celebrating being home with the people that I was seeing at home. Do you know what I mean? But every day, every day we were in a different port. So you were exploring different places, different bars, and then the crew bar at night. So yeah, I was drinking heavily through my 20s.
Yeah. But I imagine when you come back and saw your mates again, you'd kind of learnt your trade on the cruise ships and that. And did you then think, right, I need to do something different? But I imagine you did a right jolly up when you come back, right?
All the time. Yeah, I'll come back, and I was excited to see everyone. So yeah. It's up. So, I honestly, for my 20s, up until like 4 months ago. I mean, I had a bit of a break last year when I went sober the first time, but before that, I think I've been pissed or drinking every single weekend for the last 25 years or 20 years.
Yeah,
it's intense, you know. But it was never an issue. It was never a problem until I don't know. It was, I guess it's never, drinking for me was never a problem until I started to think that I didn't want to do it, or it was affecting me badly, or till the blinkers come off. And I was like, oh, the reason why I'm being an arsehole is because I'm fucking hungover or I'm drunk, you know? And then when the ultimatums come, and a big thing for me about drinking is I'm terribly insecure anyway. Like, I think I've got a form of like imposter syndrome. It's very difficult for me to accept because of everything I've been through with my career and my family. It's difficult sometimes for me to accept that things are all right and things are going to be all right. And I used to have this self-destruct button especially when I was like the day after drinking or when I come down from the drugs, where if I was getting shit from my missus, I'd be like, well, this is shit anyway, and it was never going to work. It was all going to go wrong. And I could turn into a real horrible cunt, a real horrible twat, do you know what I mean? Where I'd be like, well, fuck you, fuck this. And, when big things happened in my life, like both the births of both of my children, when I went out and wet the baby's head, I mean, it went insane. Then when she complained, I would kick back. And it wasn't until I pushed my wife so far, by being rude and just doing the same thing every weekend and have a complete disregard and coming in, because especially when I started making loads of money and we moved into a big house, I was like, shut up, man. What the fuck? What's your problem? Look around you.
Look what we got from me.
Look what I've done. Let me go and get fucked. Where she didn't want any of this. She was on her own, really, looking after the kids. I didn't realize I had a problem until I realized that the drinking was causing my behavior. And then when I tried to stop or calm it down, I realized how it was fucking ingrained into every aspect of my life, and that it weren't going to be easy, and that's scary.
It is, mate. And you had some real ups and downs in your career, didn't you? Because you were flying at one stage and you got your TV show, and then that went wrong. And where you had like everything, you lost it, didn't you?
Yeah.
I bet that was a big part of your...
It was very surreal. I think like when you my mum and dad went through a terrible breakup. My old man was quite violent, and that I don't remember any of that from being a child, but the similar stuff around the time of when everything happened, it's such a blur to me. And I think that's partly because it was quite traumatic, seeing everything unravel around you, but also because I was drunk, man. I mean, I was drunk, but when it was happening, it was just happening, and I was like, right, this is happening. The press started kicking off at me. The petition started. The petition got big, 60,000 people. That became a real thing. And then like we were teetering on, is ITV going to cancel my show? And then they come out and publicly, they didn't even contact me, just publicly cancelled the show. Then the charities that I was raising money for publicly said they didn't want the money. And then slowly, like, all the tour that I had, I'd sold out like fucking 15 dates. The venue started pulling, then the whole tour pulled, and then my managers called me in for a meeting with them and said that the other artists on the roster are complaining. Then my manager pulled, and then a load of money in my account had to go back for like advances that I'd had. And then there was a small period, maybe of about 2 or 3 months, where I didn't really know what was going on, but the press were hounding, like press, articles, hounding my family, going to my mum's work, going like, you know what I mean? My mum, my family were ringing me, and then Newsnight, because I just wanted it to stop. So I got on Newsnight and done that interview. And then my father died shortly, like a matter of weeks after that. And then it was, the way my father died was brutal, because the whole way through this, he was supporting me. Do you know what I mean? And he was saying things like, everyone else was like, oh fuck, man, like this is well bad, and everyone was like, shit's over, are you embarrassed? Oh fuck, man. Like, or some people were just like gone, like didn't even want to have nothing to do with me. And I was going out like with my missus and my mates and their missus, and you can see the women were funny. It was, I felt like a rapist, man, for doing a rape joke. It was. But when my father passed away, he was the only one that had an attitude like, who the fuck gave you a TV show anyway? They're mental. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you bragged it. Look at everything you achieved in such a small amount of time. If they're going to do that to you, then fuck it. They can't still take away what you achieved. Like, you're a talent, and fuck it. It's their fault for giving you a TV show. You're a nutter. You know, he was trying to be funny with it.
Yeah.
And then he just had a stroke, man. And I managed to get over and speak to him, and before he passed away. But ultimately, I had to make the choice as well, because my mum and my brother couldn't make the choice to turn his machine off. So I made that choice, and I've never really spoken to my brother since, which is hard. In fact, we don't talk. But in that period of time after that was dark. That was a year of heavy drug use, and it sort of culminated in a suicidal thoughts. And you know, because I broke up with my missus when my missus told me she was pregnant, because she told me she was pregnant a matter of days after my father died. Because it was fucking hard, man. She told me she had polycystic ovaries. Well, she did have polycystic ovaries, so we were told we couldn't have kids. And 2 days after my father passed away, she said she was pregnant. And then shortly after that, and I regret it to the day I die, but I sort of knew that I was. I had thought to myself, I mean, I'd almost given up when I'd lost everything. But when my dad died, I was like, if that's how you want to be, I'm not going to have any respect for life now at all.
Yeah.
Like, I've
Yeah.
tried.
Lost the plot. Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried. So I what little money I had in the bank left, I just spunked, and I knew that was going to be the way. And I knew that all I wanted to do was drink and do drugs. So I broke up with her, which was terrible. Yeah, one night I ended up calling the Samaritans when I was considering suicide, and spoke to them. And then I'd like to say I pulled my act together from the drink and drugs, but I didn't. But I stopped self-sabotaging and got back with my missus, and you know, the usage and everything sort of calmed down a little bit, and I got into the role of being a father, or preparing to be a father. And then I battled with the drink and drugs and being a father for years, do you know what I mean, until I finally realized I couldn't do it.
That's some story, mate. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's horrendous what you had to go through there.
Yeah.
And that whole cancel culture there, yeah, I know that happened, but it's how you deal with it after. And a lot of us as well, blokes in the lag culture, it's like, I'm on it now. There's nothing left for me. And it is that self-sabotage, isn't it? But it's really interesting that you got to a point that you've called the Samaritans as well. Was you at a real low, or was you really concerned about whether you would take your life or not?
I was I think I've been there a few times, do you know what I mean, where the cocaine has made me just fucking fall apart, do you know what I mean, where the excessive usage of it, the mixed with problems of whatever was going on, where it's like just sobbing and like crying and despair and not seeing, you know, like panic. And on that particular night, I was thinking about, you know, maybe it'd be easier if I just killed myself. And I was thinking about, I actually thought about slitting my wrist, but the geezer's house that I was staying in, he just had new white carpet. So I was contemplating, I was going through, yeah, I was going through that. I don't know if I was serious, but I was, the point is, I was thinking, if I was going to kill myself, how would I do it? And I just think I just checked myself, where I was like, right, you know, because I like to think I'm an intelligent person, and I'm like, right, this, however I'm feeling is being amplified by these drugs. You know, I'm in no fit state. I was horrifically, but I was confused, and I just thought, and you know, you hear all that stuff, you know, talk to someone, you know, and all that stuff. So I think I just wanted some answers or reassurance. I don't think I was ever gonna. I don't think I'd ever kill myself ever. It's not something I think was real for me. I think it was thoughts, and the fact that there were thoughts there, I thought, now it's time to talk to myself. And I wanted some answers. Or I think what it was I was crying, I was upset, and I wanted to tell someone how I felt, and reach out to someone, but I couldn't to my missus, because we'd broke up, and there was no way I was putting that onto my mum. I didn't want to put that onto my mum, you know, especially with the drug use and everything. She didn't know about it then. And my close friends, they're just not, that's not the vibe. Do you know what I mean? That's why I think the Samaritans is so, you know, these helplines are so important, because a kind, warm voice answered the phone, and I don't think she hardly even said anything, mate. She may have said a few things, prompted a few things, but I just bled my heart out for 45 minutes. And like I said, it's not like I turned some massive corner. everything didn't seem as bad.
You shared it, mate, and that's what therapy, counselling is all about. Is having someone to listen to you. Do you know what I mean? And that, I think, for you, mate, it was a bit of a warning sign of like, oh, I'm really, really in the shit here, you know. And somewhere you got yourself out of it by making that call. Because after that, did you kind of like change or
yeah, I think like from like I wasn't, it wasn't me versus the world after that. Do you know what I mean? Like after, like I was sort of like, fuck, like the being a dad, fuck my career, like fuck you. Like once my dad died, I was just like, I don't give a shit really. If this is how everyone's portraying me now, you're going to treat me, this is how I'm going to be. And I was going out, I was drinking, I was doing drugs, I was being rude to people, I didn't give a fuck. But after that, my attitude changed. It was, you know, my drug use and alcohol use went back to probably being a fun thing instead of being instead of being like a coping mechanism. I mean, it must have still been coping mechanism, but
I
wasn't sitting on my own doing it. I was out with my pals, but my attitude turned to, right, let's have another crack at this then. Let's have another crack at this. What do I need to do? I need to get, she's going to have a baby. I need to get us a fucking house. Well, I need to get her back first. I need to get her back. Then I need to get us a house. Then I need to, so just like everything else in my life, I just laid it out and put my head down and started working towards it.
But you know what's interesting, Dan, is all that attitude, and I've been there, that self-sabotage is like, fuck the world, fuck me, fuck everything. It's actually, fuck me. You don't care about yourself. And that's the difference, because you lost everything up to then. It's like, there's nothing, you're not. And when you made that call to the Samaritans, that was, I need to save myself here. Do you know what I mean? And when people press the fuck it button, I always say it's not the fuck it button, it's the fuck me button, because you don't care about yourself enough to.
Yeah, and I think that this is the problem with men, and it's like it takes so long to get to a stage of, like I'm still learning it now, obviously, but it takes so long to get to the stage without drinking drugs, to get to the stage where you're like, I feel all right. Like I feel all right. And like, I don't need that to feel, I don't need another feeling to feel all right. But when you're in the midst of years and years of going, oh mate, I can't fucking handle this. Give me a fucking drink. Give me some fucking drugs. And then you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, fuck. And you're like that for a couple of days. And you're like, you know what will make me feel better? Give me.
More.
Yeah, it's so hard to like, because I tell you what, I didn't want to go sober, mate. I'm sure everyone's the same. I didn't, last year when I went sober, it was the shittest 6 months of my life. And I was like, I was telling everyone like, I was like, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, it's cool. And like, I was doing it to prove a point to my missus, and I was doing it to show everyone I didn't have a problem. And then when I felt like I'd done it long enough, I was like, well, Christmas is coming. I'm going to go back. I'm going to have a couple of fucking drinks. And the next thing, fuck you.
And it don't take long, mate, does it? It's literally almost instant. Yeah.
I was quicker the second time, after I first done it. But the hard thing about that is, and also the hard reality of that is, when shit got worse with me and my wife, after all that, I mean, I'd given her a taste of what life could be like. You know what I mean? And then bang, he's an arsehole again, and it's fucking bad. And also, this is accelerated through the most fucking happy period of what was meant to be the most happy period of our life, our wedding and all that. That it was like, fucking, here we go. Right, you have to stop, because you are gonna fucking lose. You can't drink anymore. It turns your head mental. The drugs turn you mental, and you become selfish. You can't drink anymore. And like, making that choice, what do you want out of life? A family, or to go out on the fucking piss? And then anyone that's listening to this, it's hard. It's really, really hard. But after about a month or 6 weeks, maybe when you start feeling the first bit of benefit of sobriety, if you can get to that point, I think that you got a chance. But you've got to give yourself 2 months maybe, and to really start feeling the benefits. Because now I'm like, why would I go back to that?
Yeah. But the thing is, Dan, you went back to it after 6 months before, right? But
Yeah.
I look
That's
at
always
that like an apprenticeship, because it's not a failure. You can learn from that. And like, how did your mates then react to you not drinking? Because that was a big part of your friendship, wasn't it? And I've been there with all the lads, like, and when
it's
I
not,
stopped, a lot of them didn't
no, it's not.
believe it.
It wasn't good, man. I mean, it was like, but look, I can't blame my mates for trying to, because they did pull me back in. They said, you ain't gonna do your stag do sober, are you? You ain't coming out at Christmas. Oh,
Yeah.
fucking hell. But listen, but I can't blame them for that, because they don't live in my house. They
Mm.
only saw Party Dan. Do you know what I mean? They like, I can't blame them for that, because most of them can go out and have a few drinks, and they're not coming back and destroying their fucking relationship with their wife,
Yeah.
or neglecting their children, or being a fucking arsehole, or having emotional breakdowns every time they do cocaine, So how can they comprehend what I'm going through? They can't. They probably just think I'm doing it for clout online, or
Yeah.
or because I've had an argument with my missus. So this time was different. This time round, when shit hit the fan, everyone knew about it. My close friends, people reached out to me and said, look, you can't, people had a different attitude. They was like, because when I go off the rails, I go. And so this time around, it's been a little bit different. I mean, I'm not going to lie, there's 2 or 3 close friends of mine that we just don't talk now. We just can't, because, well, they've got no interest in me because I don't drink. That's the only thing we had in common. There's a handful of people that I know I probably won't see unless, I don't know, it's a funeral or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There
But
are
then,
casualties though, Dan, because you align differently, mate, and that's life. It
yeah,
is life, and it's part of sobriety that you got to. I don't know. I mean, I've lost friends that I thought were friends, and then I realised they weren't, and that's okay, because I've made a load of new friends that I trust and respect, and what they say is valid, because they're not pissed all the time and forgotten what they say. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
How bad was you an everyday drinker, or was you just weekend out with a lads drinker?
Yeah, I didn't really drink in the week at home. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's the weird thing. I could take or leave a beer at home. Do you know what I mean? I didn't necessarily. I mean, I used to a lot when I lived with my mates. When I lived with my mates, which I did for years, we'd have a bottle of wine a night and all that stuff. But the last like few years, or 3 or 4 years, I didn't. It was special occasions and weekend blowouts.
Yeah.
And not all of them were bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, some weekends we'd go along with no problems. You know what I mean? And it'd just be a few drinks. But some weekends it'd be drink and drugs, and there'd be no problems. But at least once a month there was drink, drugs, and problems. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was just emotionally and mentally never recovering during the week. So yeah, I mean, I try and say that a lot to people. That I wasn't. I don't think I was alcohol or drug dependent at all. I think that, but I was at weekends. Do you know what I mean? Thursday and Friday would come. That's where the Sesh Gremlin character comes from, because it's really fucking real, and I still feel it now. I still get the triggers now. Like, the only difference is my weeks don't stop and start; they just roll through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But trust me, I still feel it now. It's Wednesday now, so I'm all right. Thursday, it depends where I am and what I'm doing and what I see. But if I go into the city or anywhere near a Thursday and a Friday, I'll fucking feel it, and I want to get fucked still.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You went to a big event the other night, didn't you?
yeah,
Like the night before we met, I think.
yeah,
And those kind of things are full of booze and that. Did you have triggers there?
yeah. I think obviously I was quite emotional in our podcast, wasn't I? And I think something had. I think maybe I've stopped taking the journey so seriously, because I'm working so much on, I'm sober, and I'm, like we were saying, and there was a few things that annoyed me at that event. Like, for instance, another famous person was really drunk, and was over by the thing getting pictures, and I was just standing there looking, and he come over and he was like, "Don't be so fucking judgmental." And I got the ump with it, because he was prodding me a little bit, and I just said to him, don't prod me, and don't call me judgmental, mate. Like, I'm not just. And he's like, "Just because you're sober." But I said, "Listen, it ain't got nothing to do with me. I don't give a fuck." Do you know what I mean? But that wound me up. And then because he was high as well, And then he obviously rethought about what he was doing. Then he was hanging off me, sorry, and all that. And then all the other people in there that were fucking drinking and stuff. I guess what it really was the ones that were standing out were still nowhere near the level I used to get to. So I think I was looking around and going, because there were some really important people there that actually I got invited there by, like the director, the writer of the film, that I'm hoping to do some work with, and I had a really intelligent conversation with him about how it was shot and how he wrote the script and how he come up with the characters. And a part of my heart broke when I saw everyone getting drunk, because I thought, look at all of the opportunities and all of the fucking nights that people in this industry that I've been to in all these years must have looked over and gone, what a fucking twat, because that event and that scenario and being in that place meant one thing to me. I'm celebrating, baby. Like, let's drink and let's do drugs. Look at where I am. I'm here.
Yeah.
And it just broke my heart, I think.
I know, mate. I can really relate to that. Like, that, I think about it a lot. Like, just to clarify, when we say on the podcast, when you got upset, I was on your podcast the other day in London, wasn't I? And we had a brief chat beforehand about emotional sobriety. And then in your podcast, I compared alcohol to being in a relationship, didn't I? And then when you leave that relationship, i.e. alcohol, you have to go through a grieving period. And something I said there really triggered you off, didn't it?
I couldn't control my tears then. Yeah.
And it was fascinating because I quite often talk in my coaching about the grieving period that not a lot of people go through. Do you know what I mean?
I actually did a video on it. I don't know if you saw. I done a video on my. Have a look. I done a video about it when I got home that day. I got home and I was overwhelmed, and I wanted to talk about it. So I got a camera and I done a video and I put it actually on my Menace to Sobriety thing. I said that what happened, and it really did. Once I'd had time to process everything that had happened, because it's very weird when you start crying, but you don't understand why you're crying. It's like your body. It's like your body and your. It's like you said. It's like it's under a crust, and it just it's like, I don't know. You don't know. Our body and our mind and everything, even though we're not conscious of it, is very aware of the damage and stuff, I think, and where the pain comes from. And
we're also really resilient people when we drink, right? We're very strong people, high achievers a lot of the time. And what we do is what I was saying to you on your podcast was that I created another role as Sober Dave. So I've gone from Glugsy, the boozer, to Dave the Carpet on 60-Minute Makeover. Now all of a sudden I'm Sober Dave, and I'm ranting and raving about sobriety, and I'm doing talks in schools, and I'm doing this, that, and whatnot, right? And what that does, it covers over the cracks of actually how I'm really feeling about all these emotions that it's left me stripped bare, right? And I'm obviously hiding them still because I'm doing all this stuff. So I'm keeping busy to avoid my emotions. And I think you saw that in you, is that, you've created your amazing podcast, Menace Sobriety, YouTube channel, and this is your thing now. And it's like, actually, have I sat in a room on my own for half an hour in the dark and thought about how I feel about it? And that's what happens when you do. It's like,
I think, I think, oh God. Well, first of all, the clarity from sobriety is a great thing, but also it's horrible to think, to be able to think clearly about how you behaved and some of the stuff you did. For me, it's like I'm a different person. Like my wife now, I've got a completely different woman. My wife, I mean, she's out now, but my wife, the way that she talks to me and about me is a way that I don't think I've ever heard before, because she's got a completely different person, and it's nice, but it breaks my heart. But I think the reason why I got upset, well, it wasn't even about all of that. What I got upset about was, and this has caused a little bit of controversy on my video that I said, because I said those things that you said. I said that I spoke to you, and you compared it to, losing a friend that was there for you, when you wanted to celebrate, a friend that was there for you when you were feeling down or lost, a friend that was comforted you. And there was obviously there's a lot of addicts or alcoholics or people that are battling on my channel, and they're like, it's not a friend, it's your worst enemy. But what I understood from that and connected from it so much is, you know, a sense of me that's gone now, and that if I want to stay on this path, will never come back, and the sadness that I have, maybe a mixture of the sadness that I have over never being able to experience them things again, but also how deluded I was that it was a good thing. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said though about that event, right? And you feel really, really sad and regretful about how you behaved in the past.
Yeah.
And then you come on 10 minutes later to say, you know, I'm sad that I'm not going to be that person again.
Yeah,
So it's
weird. Well,
about
that's
putting
the
it in
trick.
perspective.
That's the
You
trick
know
it
what I mean?
plays on you.
Yeah, right. And what those people said about it's not your friend, of course it's not your friend, but we believe it as our friend because
that's a better way of looking at it. Yeah.
we and you've just done that,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. You're right.
interesting, right? Because you forget. Actually, it's like, yeah, I know, but you know, I always compare it to being with a narcissist or something that actually you always look at the best after a while. You become sober, right? And then the fading bars effect, you start to remember the good things rather than the bad things, right? And that's why you probably went back and thought, I'll have a couple of beers at Christmas, because you forget all the anxiety, all the mental health problems, all the hangovers, your wife saying, I don't know, I got here. You know, your kids in despair. You forget all that and you remember the piss ups with the lads and the high, right?
Yeah.
So a better way of saying it is I know it's not my friend, but he felt like my friend at the time. But it's for a very, very short period, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think also it's like the thought of the future in regards to like, how have I become sober? Like not sober, like how have I become someone that has to work on not drinking? How have I become someone that has to work on how has this happened? Like, I know sobriety is such a positive, good thing, but also it's such a shit fucking thing to contemplate for the future. Do you know what I mean? Is this me now? Am I going to have to, and I'm talking out loud, but am I going to have to, like, I went out on Saturday night with my friend who gets bang on it, and his missus for his missus' birthday, and a stranger couple that I didn't know. And I'd done it for my missus, but I said to my missus, like, I ain't staying late, and I didn't feel comfortable. I'll be honest with you. I don't feel comfortable sitting in a pub with people and ordering a alcohol-free beer, for the precise reason that everyone around the table was like, oh yeah, you're sober, oh, you're doing really well with your sobriety, oh, you don't drink, oh, that's congratulations. How come? Did it get bad for you?
Yeah.
And then one of the girls, a girl turned up and was like, oh, I've just had a bump, and my mate Chris was like, fucking hell, he's an addict. And I'm like thinking to myself, you're a fucking addict. Do you know what I mean? You're a fucking addict, mate. But anyway, all these mixed emotions. I still had a good time, but when I was ready, and then my missus only had like 1 or 2 glasses of wine, and I said, I want to go. And it's the thought of, oh, like, is that me now? Fucking hell, that's hard work.
I get that, mate. But do you know what? You settle into it. Honestly, it's like a career change. Like, so you got your fingers in different pies and that. I heard you say about clubs in abroad, Ibiza and that, and you had an estate agent, you're a comedian on cruise ship. It's about changing lanes and having a different focus in your life, right? And the more time you spend doing it, the more you settle into it, and you more you kind of adapt to these kind of people, right? And in the end, it just goes like that over your head, right? And like for me, 4 years, I've had all that. Like, I overanalyze, because a lot of us who've got drinking problems are massive overthinkers. Our brain, as soon as you wake up in the morning, it's like bomb, 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 like constantly thinking different things, right? But what you do, it just calms down and it becomes less of a focus, and you settle into this, say, treat it like a career, right? This is me without the booze, right? And then you just feel calmer about it, Dan. Honestly, it's what happens.
Yeah, it's still early days for me, innit? I mean, I'm only 5 months in, but yeah, and I think you're right. We also spoke about how we hype our focus, or like ram loads of more stuff in to fill the time. I mean, I haven't stopped. I'm sure I'm probably burnt out just from getting up every morning, boxing, from being a dad, from working, and all of that stuff, and then doing the sobriety, working on yourself. When actually it's probably a good time to just be like, look, times are good, calm down, relax.
I said it to you, didn't I, at the tube station last week? I said, right, mate, go home, put your feet up, put your phone away, and just chill out.
Yeah.
Did you?
No.
You made a video about the podcast on your channel.
Yeah. Made a video on it. What did I do the next day? I was shooting all day the next day. look, it's all good. Look, this is the work we're doing. You know, you can't just say you're not going to drink and then just pretend like nothing's happened. You know,
Of course not, mate. But it's you know, all I'm saying is that keep going with it. You're doing amazing. I mean, talk to me about your Facebook group. Right? How many men have you got in that group?
I think it's about 35,000 men now,
which is amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing, but it's also sad that there was such a need for it that it grew so quick. You know, I put it on my Facebook and like literally remember, I was like, because what was happening with me was I was getting when I first went on my journey, I think it was such a big shift from my content and what I was doing because I was such a lad's lad and doing jokes about drinking drugs. And I had a beer out, owned a nightclub. Do you know what I mean? I sold beer, I had a nightclub, I even made music about the session. It was such a change that it caught a lot of people by surprise. But I think it also, a lot of lads were like, yeah, man, I've been waiting to fucking sort my shit out and da-da-da-da. And also I was talking, I think what it was even the people that couldn't connect with the fact that I wasn't drinking, I was talking about being upset and depressed and being a shit husband and crap to my kids. And I was talking about not wanting to do drugs anymore and drink anymore. And my inbox was filled full of people on all different things, you know, about gambling addictions, about fucking parent alienation, not being able to see their kids or their missus breaking up with them or feeling depressed, suicidal. It was fucking intense, mate, to the point where I couldn't go into my inbox and I felt fucking bad. And I was talking about that as well. I was like, I can't help you, man. I'm not a professional, you know, I'm just venting. And that's where it come about. I said, we need to talk. You obviously all need to talk. So I'm going to create this group.
Yeah.
And I took them right through the journey on my Facebook. I said, what should I call it? And then, you know, suddenly there was all comments coming down now about men and their emotions. Yeah, mates. I was like, great. And I was like, can someone make me a logo? So then all these logos come. So I got the logo and I created the group. And I've done it while I was on holiday, while I was meant to be off my fucking phone. My missus was going mental. But I've done it while I was on holiday, created the group, and then they just fucking flooded in.
Exploded.
In the conversation.
But you know what it is, mate? Because they look up to you as a lad's lad, a real geezer, right? And because you were then willing to be honest and open about your own mental health and that, it gave permission for them to do the same. And that's what's brilliant about it, you know? Like on my Instagram, right, 85% of my followers are women, right? That's because men don't want to admit to it. I think they go further down. They don't think there's a problem with it. You know, it's like just a few beers with the lads, what are you talking about? Or, you know, I had a couple of beers with a football on a Sunday afternoon. And it's not, I don't think this is my experience of people I talk to. I think men take a bit longer to realise it's a problem.
Yeah, I think so. But also, I don't even think it's denial to a certain extent. It's like, I don't give a shit. Like, because I was very much in the attitude as, well, what else have I got? Because I didn't know what sobriety, I didn't know the benefits of sobriety. I didn't know how bad I felt until I felt good. I didn't know that my whole, like, I didn't realize, like, I used to feel weird when I'd go a while without drink, like the clarity, I'd be driving in my car and I'd be like, man, this is actually an all right day. I used to have them thoughts and I'd be like, oh yeah, because I ain't been on the piss for about 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, but that compounded feeling, you know, the lads don't get there. So how are you going to go and say to a man, right? A man that's earning not a great deal of money, but working his absolute tits off. He can't really afford to go on holiday or and he's getting shit from his family for not providing the right things. Or maybe his missus has fucking left him. Do you know what I mean? And he's a bit overweight, right? And the only thing he fucking enjoys is getting pissed or taking drugs from his house. How are you going to tell him to stop doing that and his life will get better? That his life will get better. And that was my mentality as well. I was like, how's my life going to get better if you're going to take the only thing away from me that I enjoy doing?
I really hear that. That's a really good way of putting it as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And for me, I'm lucky enough that I had kids, I think, and that I almost lost Shelley because you know, I'm fucking pushed it so many times. And I just some lads, that's why I think we lose so many lads to suicide, because by the time they fucking realize what's important, it's too late and they can't handle that. Sad.
Powerful, mate. So tell me about your podcast, right? So that come along, right? I thought I was the #1 podcast in the land when it comes to sobriety, but you bowled up, didn't you? How
Yeah,
long's that been going?
it's done all right. It's done. I've done two, well, 12, 13 episodes, I think. Your one, I've moved your one to your one wasn't out for another fucking series. Yours was at the end of series 3, but I've moved it to this week just because
Oh,
it's
yeah,
out on
that's good.
Sunday. It's out on Sunday just because I don't want to deal with it again. The little breakdown bit. I was like, while it's fresh,
Get it out of the way.
get it out. Yeah, and I
All right,
really like
so
the
that would
podcast.
be in the past now because this ain't coming out before Sunday. So that'll already be out by the time this is aired. But do you know what, Dan? I really enjoyed that podcast because for me, whatever energy was going on, I felt really relaxed talking about myself as well. I think we had a good vibe going on there.
Yeah, definitely. I find it difficult not jumping in and giving my opinion, but with you, I was like because of the way you talk, maybe the tone of your voice, the way you talk, I was drawn in. So I listened to a lot of the stuff you were saying. I think that's maybe why I got so connected to it. You have great analogies, great ways of describing things. But yeah, it was good to get to know you. Definitely.
Yeah, and you, mate. So what does the future look like? Are you just taking it week by week with this, or is this it, do you think?
What, for sobriety?
Yeah.
Sobriety's no, that's me done. That's me
Good
done.
lad.
Yeah, that's me done. I mean, there's no way that I could leave a glimmer of maybe if I do this after a while in my mind, no way. And my attitude with that was, and what I keep on saying over and over in my head is, I'm not missing out on free. So I want to stay free. And also there's no way in a million years that if I had a drink and that, like, it would just be like cheating on myself or my missus, really.
Yeah.
There's no way she is going to go down that road again. And for me, I feel like I've got an opportunity to fucking get it right with the kids as well. Be a good dad. I've got an opportunity now that, I mean, if I don't drink or do drugs, it's going to be all right. Do you know what I mean? That's it.
100%, mate. And moving forward, all your opportunities, like you hear a lot of the entrepreneurs now don't drink.
Yeah.
They don't, because they need to be sharp. They need the clarity, right? And I think that whole story about that event the other night, when you see all these people, that's literally like holding a mirror up to yourself and looking in that reflection, thinking, oh my God, that's what I was like. But tonight I spoke to the director about all this stuff, that really valuable stuff, and I'm going to remember it. And he's going to respect me as well, because I was fluent in my conversation. I wasn't an idiot leaping about like Lee Evans, you know. And it's these kind of things you've got to hold on to, not the past. Like, don't hold on, because we're in the present now, and this is a new version. You're going down a new road, and you don't get a single person say they regret being sober. Trust me, you don't.
I'm in it. I'm in for the long run. Maybe that's what upset me a little bit. The road looks long, but to be honest with you, when I was out the other night and I was watching them drink, and I saw like the little baggie. Do you know what I mean? He come back from the toilet and the little baggie went into his hand. I was like, ugh. I was like, oh. I was like, oh, like it weren't like I was like, oh, I've got to go because I want to do coke. I was like, oh, that's fucking rank. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like I feel like I've connected everything that comes with it. It's not like I'm like, oh, the drink and the drugs look nice. I'm like, oh man, imagine what comes with that.
But that's what I mean about that last time. The last time you did it was your apprenticeship, your trial run, and then you went back to it and you've learned from that, because now you're saying you ain't going back to it. And this is why anyone that relapses or slips or messes up or whatever, always say, don't look at that as a negative. Look at it as actually part of it, because some people take 3, 4, 10 times to crack it. But each time you're learning something.
Yeah, it gets worse and worse when you go back. I definitely think it gets worse and worse, because you like, it's all well and good saying, oh, I think you've got a drink problem. You can't control what you're doing. it's hard to say that when you're enjoying it, for someone to feel that they can't control it. But when they're trying to stop and you really feel that grip, that's when the work really starts. I think that's when you know, and the longer you spend away from it, the less of the grip you feel. Isn't it crazy that this whole conversation that we're having and both of our lives and everything that we're talking about, everything that we've been through, our families, like our childhood and everything, and it all boils down to a fucking a drink or a drug, a substance.
Yeah.
That it's simply like dopamine addiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's simply
it's awful, really. I look around at all the like the A-listers, like Bradley Cooper, you know, that are all like sober, Jamie Lee Curtis, Brad Pitt, like all. It's such an enormous global conversation that, oh my God, I'm sober over one drug that is literally everywhere you look. It's marketed like the clappers wherever you go. Do you know what I mean? And you have to justify it every time you say you're not taking that drug.
right. Yeah,
That's the weirdest thing. You know, like, oh no, I don't take heroin anymore. What?
yeah. They wouldn't question that.
No. Or no, I gave up the fags. Oh, brilliant, mate. You know, I hate smoke. Like all that business. Yeah. You say I've stopped drinking. It's like, what? Are you mental?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people, you know, around me, like I know that there's people around me, like maybe friends that are kind of like, what are you doing, man? Like, you didn't have a problem. What are you doing? You know, and it was like, I'd done a podcast with my pal Callum Baxter, come out last week, and he said, you know, everyone else went home and got on with their lives, but it was still with me. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, but look, positive things and
yeah. I mean, you say, you know, people don't think it's a problem. It's when you go home on your own. You know, I work with a lot of women, grey area drinkers and that, and a lot of them, their friends don't know because they don't tell them. You know, it might be 1 o'clock, 2 glasses Prosecco, go home, and some people are going home having a cup of tea, and others are opening another bottle up. You know, it's when it affects you like that, it's a problem, right?
Yeah, and for me, there was something weird with the drugs as well. I've heard some stuff that when you mix alcohol and cocaine, it makes like another drug, or it has some sort of effect on you. But it was a weird thing that I'd go through, and like my business partner Carlos, he talks about it quite a lot in jest when we go out, because very often over the last couple of years, it'd be me and him going to meetings in town, going and doing things in town, and he doesn't take drugs at all. He doesn't take coke, and it'll be us going to meetings, perfectly fine meetings. We meet up with a few people, dinner and stuff like that. And sometimes I'd go in with him into London, and we'd have a meeting. I'd have a couple of glasses of wine or a few beers, and that's it. Sometimes we'd go in, I'd have a couple of glasses, a few beers, and I'd get smashed. But sometimes before we've even got in, I'd text him saying, I'm getting on it tonight. And in my mind, I was not happy until I got some cocaine. And it was like it was there in me. It was like it would pop up, and I'd have 1 or 2 drinks. And I'm like, right, give me a number. I'm whatever we were doing. And I can remember looking, like Carlos saying as well a few times, like sometimes a switch would just go in you, and you're like, I'm getting on it. And that's that. I don't know what that is, but I know that there is millions of lads out there right now that they can't have 1 or 2 without that switch going. And I just don't understand it, but that's a problem. That is a problem.
Absolutely, mate. Look, Dan, it's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you, mate. I feel like I've known you forever.
Yeah, we'll keep in contact, David. Definitely, mate. We'll keep chatting.
100%, mate. And I'm glad my episode's out Sunday.
I am too. It was such a thing. I rang him straight away and I said, I want that one out next week. One, because I didn't want to wait for it and go through that again, even though it wasn't so bad. But you know what I mean? I just want to get it with it. But also because there was just so much gold in it, mate. So much nuggets of information and your analogies. And I think that's the key thing about these podcasts. One little thing that one of us might say, someone might go, that's fucking, I get that.
Do you know what I mean? It's the seed, isn't it? It plants it in there. And it's that thing, if these podcasts can help people identify to maybe they got a bit of a problem, that's why they're worth doing.
Yeah.
100%, man. And it's so lovely to have you on my podcast, Dan. Keep doing what you're doing, mate, spreading the word. And I'll get to see you soon, I hope.
All right, mate. Thank you very much.
Good lad.
Bye, mate.